Welcome to Digging Deeper, the official Digging for Kryptonite companion podcast. I am your host, Anthony Desiato, and joining me to discuss the 2004 storyline Godfall, co-written by Michael Turner, is comic book artist V. Ken Marion. Welcome.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Good to be back.
This is your pick.
Man.
I'm so excited to get into this. So this is an episode of Digging Deeper. This is typically a Patreon exclusive. I am releasing this publicly so that everyone gets a chance to sample the types of episodes that we do on Digging Deeper. And so if you enjoy this and you want more, please head on over to patreon.com/Anthony Desiato. So I got to thank you for this recommendation, because I read this when it first came out. I mean, I was a regular reader. You know, I read all the Superman books weekly, as they were coming out. And so I read this storyline at the time in 2004. And I'll be honest, it just didn't make that much of an impression on me at the time. I didn't have strong feelings one way or the other. But when you expressed interest in doing this, again, we're usually aligned in what we like when it comes to Superman, and just the fact that you were excited about it, I was like, yeah, let me give this a shot. So I had a lot of fun, and I'm excited to compare notes with you. Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love this book. Haven't read it in a long time. So, and if I recall, when it first came out, it came out across Superman and Action, right? Like it alternated between the two titles.
So this storyline, so again, it's Godfall. It's co-written by Joe Kelly and Michael Turner, with art by the Aspen crew, and we'll get into all of that.
We'll definitely talk about that.
And it encompassed 2 issues of each of the 3 Superman books at the time. So Superman, Action, and Adventure.
So it was 6 altogether?
So it was 6 altogether.
But it feels really so thin, though.
No, that's the thing, and I can explain. So, again, I remembered it being 6 issues. And, when I got the trade, I looked at the contents and I saw that it was 6 issues, but I was looking at it. I'm like,
it's super thin, right?
It's like really thin for 6 issues. And, as I was reading it, look, we've been reading comics, for many years. It's like you have a sense of the rhythm of a comic, right? Mm-hmm. And even though this book, it doesn't break up the chapters, and the covers are all at the end. So you don't really know when one issue is ending and the other's beginning, but like when you hit certain beats in the story, it's like, oh, that's the end of the issue. And I started counting pages, and if my math was right, each chapter is about 16 pages. There were backup stories in these issues.
Oh, okay, that makes sense then.
And what I actually did was, only two out of the 6 issues of the storyline are available digitally. But I went to the DC app. I think it's the Action Comics issues; those are there.
Really?
And so I flipped through them, and they had backup stories. So that's why these 6 issues fly by. Yeah, because they're not full length.
Yeah. No, I mean it's still kick ass, and the trade is priced at $9.99. So if you guys want to out there buy it at your local comic shop or online at comic stores, like not digitally, but like Midtown Comics or whatever, it's pretty affordable. So.
I got to tell you, because when you expressed interest in doing this, I was like, well, of course. And I assumed, I don't know, I guess just, like Michael Turner doing Superman's like a big deal, right? And I just assumed, I was like, well, they must all be on the DC app. Yeah. And I could have sworn like I came across Godfall on there, and I did.
I'm shocked.
It was only the 2 issues, and it turns out the trade is also not in print.
Really? Wait, seriously? Wait, so the trade itself isn't on Comixology? You can't buy the wow.
No.
Man.
So it's one of these things where we're going to talk about what a great fun story this is, but if you want to read it, you might have to do a little work.
Yeah, it's really good, yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. Do you want to set up what the basic premise of this book is?
Yeah, so there's so much I want to talk about this. So basically it's Michael Turner co-wrote it with Joe Kelly, like you said, and the team Aspen of the time, which we'll get into all of them. They did all the art, and it's like takes place. I don't know how much. I mean, we're going spoilery. It's Superman's trapped in Kandor, and the bottle city of Kandor, and for the first half of it, he doesn't even realize he's trapped there, and he's assumed like a working stiff lifestyle of just being like a just like like your average person, like going to a job, and he rides a sweet motorcycle, like, and it looks awesome. But yeah, and it's him basically like reawakening and like kind of like rediscovering himself and like his purpose and fighting against the forces that are keeping him in Kandor. It's just a really cool imaginative story, and it's fun,
And so did you read this as it was coming out at the time?
I did not. No, I read this. I got the trade when I was in college. So like when I was in college is probably when I got my biggest kind of like influx into like reading as much as possible. Like when I was in high school, I just kind of read like only the issues on my pull list. So like I pretty much only read like Green Lantern, Nightwing, and like a little bit of Superman here and there. But when I got to college is when I kind of like I went to art school, so that's when I kind of like just started getting as much as I could and like kind of catching up on stuff. And Michael Turner was always one of my favorites. So like when I saw this at Midtown Comics, I was like, oh, I vaguely remember these covers like when I was younger in high school, this coming out, because I always thought the covers were kick ass, and so it's just such a fun book.
Yeah, it really was a lot of fun. I was happy to revisit it. And, like I said, I was reading these at the time. And it's funny, and Joe Kelly actually mentions this in his introduction to this. He just finished writing Action Comics. Like, he had this lengthy tenure on Action Comics, and then he left. And this was like his first project. It was co-writing this 6-part story. And I just remember that at the time. I'm like, what? I thought you left. But I think it was cool because you had the freshness of Michael Turner and the Aspen crew, like coming in and looking at these characters with fresh eyes and big ideas. But you also had someone who had been one of the stewards of the character for quite a few years at that point. So I think that was ultimately a cool collaboration. I think it yielded a final product that, fit in with what was going on in the books at the time, but was also something that, like, you can pick this up now in a vacuum and it reads well.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It's, like it's not like how do I put this? It's not like a book that's like, like talking about like the existentialism of like man or something like that. Like it's like a fun superhero like action based book, and Oh, and for listeners who went all the way back to our first episode of Digging for Kryptonite, you had asked me my favorite alternate looks for Superman, and I was so mad at myself I didn't remember this. The look that he has in this black suit with the red cape.
Yeah.
So awesome. Like, this is like probably my favorite alt look for Superman. Like, and it's not even like his super suit. It's just like his like normal clothes, like in this world. Like, so cool. So yeah, I want to talk about the art. Like, we keep calling them the Aspen crew, but it's Talent Caldwell did the pencils, Jason Gorder did the inks, and Peter Steigerwald did the colors, and it is like beautiful. Like, this book, I wish more comics looked like this now. Like, it is so gorgeous. Like just such a cool style. Like, Talent's style is kind of like Michael Turner, but like mixed with like Street Fighter almost, like, because like it's like blocky and like thick and energetic and so cool, man. There's so many pages like this page right here where like he's on the motorcycle and like you see like his like reaction shot. Like, I wish I could own this page. Like, it's such a good page. Like, yeah. Sorry, I'm like going nuts about this.
No, I mean, that's awesome, and again, we're doing this because of you, so I'm happy to go wherever you want with this. It's funny, you mentioned him on the motorcycle, and they talk about that in the introduction too. It's so funny because it's like, this is a character who can fly, yet it's for some reason like really cool. It's
awesome.
On a motorcycle.
Yeah, I think it's the cape, the cape whipping in the back because he's on the motorcycle, and it's one of those like sci-fi like lean forward like Akira. I think they even say Akira in the intro. Like, that was like the inspiration for the motorcycle. And dude, this cover, I think it was the first issue of this series. Yeah, this one where he's like sitting on the motorcycle. Like, I used to like when I would go to cons, like when I was trying to break in, I would like Frank at Aspen would have like all of Michael Turner's like original pages still for sale. And one year, I think it was the first year I went, they had this one still, and I remember like it was like $15,000, and I was like, man, I wish I could afford this. Like, I just wish I could afford this one day. And then like the next year I went back to look at it, it was gone. Like, some lucky bastard owns this. It's a really cool page.
That would be really awesome to own. And so like so Talent Caldwell, I mean, I've not followed his career. Like, what has he done since this?
So I mean, I actually don't know what he's doing now. It's funny. We're actually rep by the same art rep, so I'm sure my rep would know if I talked to him. But I know he did some more work at DC, and I think he did some work at Wildstorm too. Like after I'm not sure if it was before or after Aspen. Like he did some miniseries with Aspen, then he did some covers and stuff with DC, and then I think he might have left the industry, like doing like animation or something. I'm not actually sure. Like I don't know. I don't know him personally, so I don't know. Like I haven't seen him do a book in a long time, but he's really, really good, and I want him to do more. Like he's kick ass, like for sure. You know.
I mean, it's short of Turner drawing this himself. I mean, I think the book was in amazing hands, and I mean, like when we talk about the colors and Peter, was it
Steigerwald, yeah.
Steigerwald. I mean, I don't know how do you describe what he's doing with his color palette? Because it is such a distinct look. I mean, I can't articulate what is it exactly that makes this stand out the way it does.
So Peter's like an artistic genius. He he uses a lot of how do I describe this? Like he uses a lot of purples and blues and stuff in his work, and I remember talking to him, and he would talk about how like if you look at Disney animation, right? Like if you look at the backgrounds of like Bambi or something, and you look at the forests, like you'll see purples and blues and stuff on trees, like to donate, like. So I feel like a lot of colorists, what they do is they like, oh, sky's blue, it's blue. Grass is green, it's green. Like where Peter will like use other colors to denote like shadow and highlights, and like if you look at things in real life, like what you think of local color is not necessarily the actual color you're seeing, right? Like so I've got a white shirt on right now, but like if you're actually looking at it, there's a blue shadow here, like just like the way the light hits it. And Peter's so smart with that, and so he uses those color theories to really make things pop and make them look lush and realistic at the same time, and storytell as well with the color. Like he uses like the warms and the cools to denote like scenes and like emotion and the storytelling essentially. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining that properly.
No, that's actually a really good explanation. And like now that you say it, it's like, oh, like that clicks. Like I get what you're saying. I mean, it's a gorgeous looking book, and it's a cool concept. I mean, as you laid out, right? It starts with Clark living on what he thinks is Krypton, a Krypton that never exploded because his father was able to save the planet with these Terra forges, right? That stop the earthquakes. And he's married to this woman named Lila, and he's this low-level government bureaucrat, and feels like something's missing, right? Which of course it is. And then we come to find out that it's not Krypton, but he's actually on Kandor under this woman's spell, but that led to what I think is really, like, I like this book because it's fast paced because it's only 16 pages per issue, but I mean the art's gorgeous, and it's a fun story, and it was at the time again, it was a break from the ongoing stories of the moment, so it was kind of a nice change of pace and a breath of fresh air. But what I really found from a story perspective, like so interesting about this, is this idea that to the people of Kandor, Superman's like God. Like he's this person above who visits them occasionally and looks out for them and protects them. But he's been a neglectful God, right? Because as we and Clark come to learn, there's been some sort of like temporal glitch, and 100 years have passed on Kandor. And that time that's passed for them, where Superman hasn't appeared, has only further mythologized him in their minds and deified him, right? Where it's like now he's like really to them a god. And I just thought I thought it was a really interesting concept. And I also thought the idea, even glitch aside, Clark admits that he hasn't been as attentive to the Kandorians as he probably should. And I thought that was interesting. And it showed that he is fallible, and he's, he doesn't do everything right all the time. So I thought those two ideas were like really interesting.
Yeah, no, it paints what we always talk about him being relatable, right? Like it makes him like, it's almost like the Kandorians are how most of pop culture views Superman, and Superman is how we view Superman, right? Like me and you, how as being relatable. And like I thought that was such a cool like dynamic to play with, you know. And one of the things I love about this is that it broke new ground without like shitting on the past, if that makes sense, right? Like, so like we said, this is a brand new fresh take on Superman, but it's not like they had to like reboot the character and like be like, no, this is our new, you know. It's like within the established parameters of like the character status quo of the time, they were able to make a new story with new villains who are actually really cool, which I'm surprised they've never been back, because like both Lila and Prius, who ultimately becomes one of the like the villain he fights at the end, like they're both like cool characters with cool designs, and they're new, you know. They're like brand new characters that were never before, at least I don't think, you know.
They were new characters. Lila, as far as I know, I don't think they did anything with her after this, but Prius was in Chuck Austin's Action Comics run.
Was he really?
Yeah.
I've never read that, so I didn't know. Yeah.
You know, look, we on the show, I know we're always respectful of the creators who work on these books. I'll go out on a limb and I'll say I did not like that run. And I know Chuck Austin generally is not among the more revered comic book creators. This was that period of time where like Chuck Austin was like writing a lot. I don't know if you remember this, but he was doing like a bunch of stuff for DC and Marvel, and he had this run on Action Comics.
I feel like I remember him writing X-Men. That's why that's when like they had the manga artist drawing X-Men, which I actually really liked. Yeah.
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 I will say his Action Comics lived up to the title. It was very action packed. Like that was the whole idea behind his run. But he did use this villain. Again, I read it at the time. I never went back to it. I don't really think that I would. But was it like right after this? Was it like the run following like this like immediately kind of thing? Pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much. There, I don't know. There might have been a little something in between, but yeah, pretty much. So
within like a year or two. Yeah. Okay.
So they did at least use that character. Oh, and that's the other thing that I thought was interesting about this. It really tapped into this idea of, I mean, yes, Kandor, but Krypton generally, like this anti-alien sentiment and the tension between native Kryptonians and the aliens. And that's an idea that, you know, it's not, I guess, not always part of the Krypton story, but you do see it at play, you know, from time to time. And in the books at the time, you know, Jeff Loeb and crew, right? They had their Return to Krypton storyline, and that ended up being like I think like a construct of Brainiac 13 or like something like that. But when Clark and Lois visited that more like Silver Agey version of Krypton in that storyline, like a year or two before this, it did really play up that whole xenophobia of Krypton, which is interesting. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but I like the idea of Krypton being isolationist in the sense that it makes it a lot more believable that they would have no spacecraft. Because it's like there's such an advanced civilization, and then it's like when the time comes that the planet's going to explode. I mean, I know a big part of it is they don't believe it, right? So there's that, but it's like, you know, even once they finally realize what's happening, you would think a civilization that advanced, like they would have some mechanism of getting some people off. But if they've really just kind of dug in and closed themselves off to other planets, you know, it would make sense that they don't have a whole fleet of ships. So I actually I think that kind of, it works well, and it adds believability to why it's like such a big deal to just get Kal-El out of there.
Yeah. I actually kind of like the idea that Krypton's not perfect either. Like, you know what I mean? That they're not like this like totally altruistic like peak civilization. Like I like that they're like flawed, you know? Like I think that adds a level of like realism to them, because it makes Superman like, not only is he like the best of what humanity is, but he's also like the best of what would have been Krypton. Like he's better than like what, like he as a person has better morals and better standards than like what the society of Krypton had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that lends to more his human, like I like the idea that humans are a more noble race than Kryptonians, if that makes sense. Do you know what I'm saying? Which it kind of plays it up to which is in some versions of it, some aren't, you know. Some Kryptonians are very like elite, you know, like the original Donner version, and then like some they're more gray, like in the Man of Steel, you know. So, but like I like the idea that, I mean, it always comes down to like, to me, like Superman's who he is because of being a human and not a Kryptonian. Like the powers come from Krypton, but like the super, like the like who he is in his heart comes from being raised on Earth, you know. And I always like that notion.
Yeah, same here. No, yeah, it's like I think anytime you can add another dimension like that, I think it does make it interesting. Look, I admitted right in the first episode of this, I never watched the Krypton TV show, but I'm excited to. I will watch it for the podcast in the future, and I look forward to it. I was kind of dismissive of it when it aired initially. I won't lie. I think my gut reaction was like, look, everyone knows, I was totally there for Smallville. This idea of like, okay, we're going to look at his upbringing. The idea of going back to his grandfather on Krypton, I was like, come on. It's like, how many layers back are you going to go? But I heard a lot of good things, and I'll keep an open mind. And honestly, between a story like this and Birthright, which is something else that you and I talked about recently, it has kind of given me, and Man of Steel as well, like it's kind of given me a little bit newfound respect and appreciation for the Krypton piece of the story. Did you ever watch the sci-fi show?
No, I never did. No.
Yeah.
You'll have to let me know how it is.
I'll have probably at least 2 podcast episodes
Nice.
all about it. Because they did 2 seasons, so I figure I'll do. They're only 10 episodes each.
Okay,
but I figure I'll and they're now all on the CW Seed, I believe, the app.
Oh, okay.
So
cool.
so we'll check that out. But so what else about Godfall?
Okay, let's see here. I love when you see the Justice League. It's like Kyle Rayner's in there. Like that was one thing that I flipped through. I was like, yes, more Kyle, always a good thing. So that's before Hal even came back. So that's how let you know how old this is.
Yeah, and I do love these sequences where you kind of recap, Clark's major moments, and it's a great way to get the Aspen team, Talon Caldwell, and the rest like drawing these key characters and moments. Mm-hmm. It was really neat.
Oh, dude, what did you think of the like Prius's like Superman like squad of like flying like police people? Like his like these guys, what do they call them?
The
Citizens Patrol Corps.
Yeah.
I thought it was a cool way to like have him like be able to fight non-powered like people, but still with powers, kind of. That was a cool like notion.
Yeah. And I know it's and like I said, I know he came back in the Chuck Austin run. I don't know whatever became of him, in that or beyond, but. I think he was a cool addition. I mean, this idea, obviously, we have Zod, right? But it's like, you can have other Kryptonian, villains. So, and he comes from Kandor, so that adds a little bit of a different dimension to it. And, I did think he was an interesting addition. So to have someone who, like Zod, shares the Kryptonian heritage and the powers, but has a very different experience and has an axe to grind with him. Really, just adds a different layer to it. So, maybe this might be a character kind of ripe for a comeback,
Yeah, I think so, man. He's got a really cool design too. And he's got this whole thing where like, he thinks Superman's God, but then when he kind of goes out to Earth, he kind of like sees himself as kind of like a god too. So like, I think there's definitely like a different note he hits than Zod for sure. I want to see Lila come back too, because like she had a really cool design as well, and like again, interesting character that like basically made Superman think he was married to her. Like that's like like crazy,
I'm glad you mentioned that, because like she basically what we find out is that Clark was like tumbling through time and reality, and she was able to pull him in, and that was actually a reference to I believe it was the Stephen T. Siegel run on the main Superman title at the time that introduced a new Supergirl, and there were these characters, the Future Smiths, and they referenced that in here. But yeah, basically, I guess at the end of that storyline, he was like tumbling through time and reality, and that's where she was able to grab him. So again, it picked up on that little thread, but again, you don't need to know that to read or enjoy this story. But like, she basically puts him under this spell where whenever people say Kandor, he hears Krypton. Right, so that creates this illusion that he's on the planet that never exploded. So I thought that was and I had completely forgotten that. And as I was reading, I was like, well, how do they work this all out? But I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and she's got a really cool design. Like that's the thing. Like, when I keep going back to this is that like, I just felt like there's a lot of like cool ingenuity, like the way the Kandorians are like drawn, like, and the biker gang of like the alien Kandorians, like really cool, like. Just like visuals on all of them,
Yeah,
I dig it for sure. there's something. Oh, did you notice the birthright? That's the origin they were rocking.
Oh yes, I did notice that.
Yeah. That made me really happy because I'm like, this is in that period where birthright was like the official origin. So that's they drew his origin to look like the birthright origin, which is cool.
So, you and I, so I have an episode coming out in April about Birthright featuring Mark Waid, and then you were there to help me kick it off, and we did a little post-mortem, but we already recorded that. People will hear this one first. One of the things that we talked about in that episode was, it was a shame that Birthright didn't, take root as the definitive origin, but for a moment, it did. There are... you do see some nods to it, and definitely the designs of like Jor-El and Lara, that you see here. So for sure,
dude, I'm flipping through it, and like, remember how when we talked before? I'm not even sure when this was. We talked. Oh, it was on the Superman Batman. We talked about how Lex Luthor being the president was so minimal of time, but like feels like it was like so much longer for us. This is another one of those stories where like they have Lex. So again, this is one of those where Lex is president, and like it just solidifies it in my head that like. Yeah, Lex Luthor was the president. Like, even though it was only like a year of publishing or whatever.
Yeah.
What did you when he freezes the family with his ice breath? What did you think about that?
That was another instance where I was like, I guess again, I mean, I read this 17 years ago, and I was like, what? I was like, what was their explanation for this?
Yeah.
The way it plays, it's like, he's Clark. There's enough yellow sunlight that Lila is able to, because that's like Lila's whole plan is like trying to, I guess, awaken enough of his powers for her to like take them for her, like clone them for herself, and then she is able to leave Kandor. So he's like these little bursts of sunlight give him powers, but he can't control them, and so yeah, it appears like he uses his super breath to freeze and kill this family.
Yeah.
And, it turns out that none of it was real. But yeah, at the time, I knew, there was no version of the story where he actually killed anyone inadvertently or not. So it was just a matter of like, well, what's the out here? But I forgot that it was,
yeah. Well, reading, because I haven't read this in like at least 15 years. So like reading it today, I was like, wait, did he just like kill that family like in absolute power, like in the where they just like kill people in the mall and they just kind of like skate over? I'm like, wait, really? Like, but then like you find out that like that family weren't real. They were like
constructs or whatever.
Yeah, like constructs. Yeah, by Lila. Yeah. But yeah, so that I was happy about that he didn't actually kill a family because that was like I feel like, oh, it's a little too brutal, Yeah, I'm just trying to see here. Oh, did you like it when they go to Metropolis and Lila's like expecting Metropolis to be like heaven?
Yeah.
And she gets there and she's like, oh, it smells like shit, and like it's like, this is disgusting. Like this is where he's from. Like what? That was like an indictment on, because like looking at Kandor, like Kandor looks like paradise. They've got like floating gardens and I'm like, why would she ever want to leave this place? Like.
Maybe there's a deeper meaning to this story. Like, I don't know, be careful what you wish for, or the grass isn't always greener on the other side. I don't know. It might be, maybe it's making a larger statement.
Yeah. There's probably an undercurrent to it for sure, because like when she gets to Metropolis, it's like, ugh, like they're all of their reactions kind of like that, all the Kandorians, and yeah.
Isn't it? I mean. Like looking at this story, I mean, the designs and the way they use Kandor and, alternate takes on Superman are quite popular. I don't know. Don't you find it odd that this was all we ever got in the Godfall, not universe, but just the Godfall storyline? Like, I feel like this is maybe still is ripe for further development.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying about Prius and Lila. Like, I think that they could totally go back, and all those characters, the Basquiat. No, Basquiat's the painter. What's his name? Basquiat. Yeah, Basquiat. Like that, the gang members of like the bikers and stuff. Like, I think there's, and that tension between like the xenophobic of Kandor versus like the class commentary, social commentary that you could do with this now. Like, I think this is definitely a ripe story to go back to, and it'd be cool to go back and see more of this for sure. I mean, this was definitely in the main universe continuity, so it's not like it was like an alt take in the sense of like it was like a reboot or anything. But yeah, man, like it for sure would be cool to go back to.
Yeah, I mean, so again, as you are an artist yourself, like if an opportunity ever presented itself for you to do something like in this Godfall style, is there anything? I mean, again, I know you talked about the designs that you like. Is there anything that you're like, oh, like I would want to another type of vehicle you would want to put him on, or
I mean, I
like
definitely
any?
want to try that motorcycle. That
Yeah,
motorcycle's sweet. Like, I mean, I just like motorcycles in general. So like that just kind of like hit all the buttons for me. But yeah, I mean, dude, did you see in the back they did you see the designs in the back where they did the different sketches of the motorcycles?
oh yeah, yeah,
And at the very bottom, there's like a tricycle thing. Did you see that?
oh
Like,
yeah, yeah.
where it's got like a little Superman flag on the back of the tricycle. I thought that was funny. But yeah, dude, like maybe put him on like a flying surfboard. I think that's like the next step to go like even extreme. You know, like I'd be all for that. Yeah, I mean, I love the costume, so like I would love to just maybe just draw him in that suit, if nothing else. You know, such a cool look.
Yeah. No, again, like I think, and as far as this, like the alt takes on Superman generally, so, like on the podcast, yeah, we haven't, this is the closest we've come to like looking at an alt take, but I'm kind of saving that. I think maybe next year, I mean, really looking ahead, but I want to kind of maybe be like a multi-episode thing where I look at a lot of these different takes because I know, that they're they're some of the most popular takes on Superman. Like when you look at like Kingdom Come, or I know more recently Injustice, which I've not delved into myself, but people are always telling me that I should and that I should, cover it. So
I don't know if you're gonna like that because isn't that the premise that Superman goes evil and like kills everyone?
yeah, but I don't know. Everybody like so. Yeah, I'll keep an open mind. But yeah, I don't know. Part of me is like, hey, really?
Yeah.
But
I mean, I feel like
like
if you're a Batman fan and you like seeing Batman kick the shit out of Superman, then maybe you'd like that. But like, I don't know. I haven't read it, or I played the game like a little bit, but like not really the story mode, just kind of like playing like the Mortal Kombat-esque part of it. So like maybe you'll like it. I don't know. I've never really interacted with the story that much though.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was cool to kind of like dip my toes in with with this story, and it's and look, this isn't the only story that's kind of imagined what would happen if Clark never left Krypton, but it is an interesting thing to speculate about because it's like, yeah, what would he most likely would have had a pretty simple, ordinary humdrum life,
Yeah,
so it's kind of, I guess, kind of interesting to speculate, and not surprising that in this version where he's lived this other life, like there is something missing for him, and that's kind of like nagging at him throughout.
Yeah,
this.
well, I thought it was interesting because we're such big Smallville fans, and for such a huge part of that show, it's him just like, oh man, I wish I was normal. I wish I was normal. And like in this the first like issue at least, he does have like he's like normal. Like he's just like a paper pusher at an office job, and like rides his motorcycle for fun when he can, and like sucks at cooking breakfast, just kind of like straight up just like normal, and he's like, oh man, like something's missing, so I think that's not only is it interesting for Superman, I think it's a good analogy for all of us who once we get to a certain age kind of like, I'm sure you felt that too, like where I'm like, oh man, I'm in my 30s already, like kind of thing, like so it's like I think there's like a good like analogy there to like growing up a little bit too,
Yeah, I know. I agree. I think there's something to that. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, I really liked how they used Kandor here. I mean, I can't say I'm like a Kandor fan. I mean, there really aren't that many stories where I'm like, oh, like that was a great, like this like, I think was a cool use of it.
This is the only Kandor story I've ever read, so this is like my if I read a Kandor story, I'm like, where's the motorcycles? Where's like where's the cool aliens? Like,
yeah. No, I just like I know I keep coming back to this, but I just think like there's some potential here to tell more stories. I don't, and again, I don't know exactly how you would frame it, but this like the design and this idea of him like living on a version of Krypton that he never left. Like I don't know. I think there's I don't know. Maybe there's some potential for something else.
Totally, it would be interesting to see like Jonathan Kent, like his son Jonathan Kent, not his dad, his son.
Yeah.
Go into here and like interact and stuff. I think that'd be pretty cool. He could ride the flying surfboard. Yeah.
Yeah. There might be. I don't know. I think there's some untapped potential. I mean, I didn't read. Like when Jeff Johns was on Action Comics, and like at the end of his run, they had the Brainiac storyline where they, Jonathan Kent passed, and then Jeff Johns kicked off the New Krypton storyline.
Oh
Where
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
wasn't the premise that Kandor, was
that? I didn't
restored?
stick with that too long. It was like I feel like it was like they made another planet on the opposite side of the sun, right?
I
It was
think
like
I think that
equidistant
was
to
yeah.
Earth. It was like the same distance that Earth was, but on the other side of the sun, and they were like, yeah, I didn't I didn't really like that story that much because Superman
Yeah.
wasn't in it. Like that was the thing. He wasn't even in it. It was like all these other characters, and I was like, nah.
Yeah. No, I did not. I did not stick with it myself. But I just in terms of like other notable Kandor stories in modern times, at least, that's the main thing that kind of comes to mind. But this was
Yeah.
cool. I mean, I feel like, what kind of sense? Maybe the fact that it's not available digitally is our answer. But like, what kind of sense do you have about this book's legacy? Like, do you notice people ever talking about it? I feel like it's kind of a little bit of a hidden gem.
That's true. I mean, yeah, if the trade's not in print and it's not digitally, I guess like I mean, maybe this podcast will get DC to republish it. It's funny. I want to talk to this about before. I actually met Joe Kelly and talked to him about this book like
Yeah?
years ago. Yeah, it was before I was a pro. It was when I was still. It must have been 2011, maybe either 2010 or 2011 at New York Comic Con when I was like showing my portfolio around, and Joe Kelly was like at his table and no one was there, and I just went up to him and I was like, "Hey man, like you wrote Superman. I'm a really big fan. I loved 775, the What's So Funny About Truth Trust." I told him, I said, I love that and I love Godfall. Like I really like, and he was like, "Oh, thank," and like he was talking to me about like just working on it and stuff. Like it was cool. He seemed like a really cool dude at the time, so it was really cool to like get that insight,
That is really cool. It's funny. I've never met him. I just had one brief Twitter exchange when I did those episodes on the Jeff Loeb, Joe Kelly era of the Superman books. I wrote an article for 13th Dimension about the run, and I think 13th Dimension tweeted it and tagged me as the writer and also tagged Joe Kelly, and he responded, and it was really nice.
Nice.
So
nice.
yeah. So I mean, at some point, I would love to try to get him on the show. Now that we've opened the door with the Mark Waid interview, it's so funny because I keep thinking to myself like, oh, like Mark Waid, like the creator interview, and it's like you have Ken on the show all the time, and he's a creator, but it's. I mean, in that case, we were talking about something that he specifically worked on, but I think it's a testament to our friendship because, like, I think of you as my friend. It's like, oh, my buddy who's like a fellow Superman fan. It's like he's also a comic creator, but it's not like, oh, I'm having a creator on. It's like, oh, it's my buddy Ken.
Yeah, I get that totally.
But no, that's cool that you had that meeting with him.
Yeah,
So.
he doesn't remember at all. I was just a pimply faced kid, college kid, yeah, but.
Look, even if he doesn't remember it, I'm sure. Look, as you've been behind a table. It's like I'm sure in that moment, if he didn't have a line, and someone came up and said, "Hey, I like these stories that you did." I'm sure that meant a lot to
totally.
him,
Yeah.
in the moment at least. Is there anything else that you wanted to say about Godfall?
Oh man, everyone should go out and buy it if they can. Find it somewhere and read it. Yeah.
I think this is where the comic shops might rise to the occasion.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, hit up your local stores and what were the issue numbers? Do we know?
I guess that's another option, right? So there's the trade. There's also the single issues. So it was Action 812 and 813, Adventures 625 and 626, and Superman 202 and 203.
Oh, so it went through 3 titles. Okay.
Yeah, it did the 3.
Yeah.
So at that point, Man of Steel had ended. So it was just the 3 books, and it was 2 issues of.
So this was published over 2 months. Then this whole 6 issues came out relatively quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. No, listen, I remember these coming out and getting them at the late alternate realities, and so I know I said this at the top, but thank you for recommending this because again, I hadn't really thought about this book. Really much at all in all these years. So it was cool to go back to it. And I think I appreciated it more now. And definitely knowing that we were going to talk about it and knowing how much you liked it, I definitely got more out of it this time.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you were able to get a copy and, talk and, shoot the shit about it. Like, it was definitely fun, and I hope people check it out. And, yeah.
Yes, right on. Where can people find and follow you, Ken?
On Instagram, you can find me at VKenMarion. On Twitter, I'm at VKMarion. I'm rep by Modern Mythology Comic Art, and you can go to their website and check out my original art and commissions and stuff that I'm available for. And I want to plug your Patreon. If you're listening to this, go to Anthony's Patreon. I'm sure you'll give the link, but it's definitely worth it. Tons of extra shows. I've listened to many of them many times while I'm working. So, yeah, definitely, I want to definitely plug that and hope people that are listening to this that aren't patrons check it out.
Well, I thank you very much. And yeah, so you saved me the trouble of doing the plug. I mean, this is what we do on the Patreon episodes. I mean, it's basically the same as the regular episodes, a little bit shorter. I keep them a little bit shorter to not to not bombard people with so many episodes and long episodes. But yeah, this is what we do. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to to kind of, maybe explore something like this, or, in other instances, we've looked at a long run on Digging for Kryptonite, and then on Digging Deeper, we've taken an issue or an episode of something. And it's fun to just kind of have a different type of conversation with a different scope than the main show. So that's what we do. If you're interested, patreon.com/Anthony Desiato. I hope you'll check it out. Find and follow Ken on social media at the handles that he provided. Make sure you keep tuning in to all of the shows. Thank you for your support. And as always, remember, it's about what you do. It's about action.